So grateful for that infusion of joy. So grateful to be here. So grateful for each and every one of you. And so grateful for your presence here and now in this moment. As we begin and move into our sermon for today, I invite you to repeat after me our centering prayer. I welcome the Spirit of truth into my mind and let it grow in my heart. Thank you, God, in me, through me, and as me. Amen, Ashe, and so it is. So it is. Yes, yes. Well, hello again. Happy Sunday. It is so very good to be here with you because life is so good and it keeps getting better and better all the time. Now, I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, are familiar with Psalm 23. Yes, yes. I'm going to read a portion here from the King James Version because that's usually the most familiar to our ears. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. And of course, the psalm ends in verse 6 with surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Some of you were probably saying it right along with me or repeating it in your mind because you've heard it over and over again. When I hear that last verse, surely goodness and mercy, I think about my grandmother in the senior choir singing that hymn, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Now, for my biblical scholars, I want to first just point something out because this is important. That word, the English word mercy, it's a translated word that we get in the English translation, is an inappropriate translation, right? And actually, because it signifies something that then creates a God concept that we need to get rid of, right? So the idea of mercy and God being merciful, it indicates an idea that we've done something wrong, we do things that are wrong, but God is merciful when we should actually be punished, right? God is not merciful. And that word that we have translated in English as mercy, the English translation, the better word would be kindness or loving kindness. Surely goodness and kindness shall follow me all the days of my life, because that's how the Lord as our shepherd operates, right? I mean, if you look through, and we're going to talk about the rest of the passage there, but a shepherd is not merciful with the sheep, right? The shepherd is showing goodness and loving kindness in all of the ways that it makes sure that the sheep have everything that they need. Now, in metaphysics, we're taught that when reading from particularly the First Testament or the Old Testament, when we encounter the word Lord, we should always translate that to law, or we should always read that as law. So that means the opening of Psalm 23, as we read it from a metaphysical perspective, we would read the words, the law is my shepherd, I shall not want. Law? What is the law? PG, are you saying that God is like the laws of Moses and the Ten Commandments? PG, are you saying that God is a set of rules like the laws of our cities, counties, states, and our country? What is the law? Now, I want to take you back to a book that we taught a 3-part sermon series from in 2020, January, February, and March of 2020. We taught from the book Working with the Law by Raymond Holliwell. I actually quoted from that text last week. And in Working with the Law, Raymond Holliwell writes this about the law. We have heard God spoken of as love, divine mind, divine intelligence, Jehovah, God, Lord, first cause, primal substance, and other names. The terms above named are all synonymous. They mean one and the same thing. And I choose to use a simpler name that everyone will understand. I shall call God working in our lives law. Okay, I shall call God working in our lives law. So that means that that's what the law is. God working in our lives. And this is how we know God, the law, is real, because we can experience and measure its action and activity in, through, and as our lives through the working of it. Now, later he goes on and he writes these words: every idea and mental picture must produce after its own kind, whether that picture is good or bad. The law determines it so. Not that the law determines good or bad. The law determines that it must produce after its own kind. The law does not question or challenge the kind of picture we give to it. It only knows that it must take what is offered or planted and then proceed to materialize it into visible form. So this is why in the Gospel of Well-Being, we teach that you must expand your concept of God, aka the law. God, the law, does not reward, and God, the law, does not punish. God, the law, takes what we offer consciously and unconsciously, then materializes it into form, into the experiences of our lives, into the people in our lives. In the same way that an ice tray receives any liquid you pour into it, and your freezer turns it from liquid to solid, this is how the law works. You may decide to put red dye in your water and freeze it because you want red ice cubes. The tray is not going to argue against you and say you should or should not do that. The freezer is not going to argue against you and say whether you should or should not do that. Water with red food coloring, it will freeze. It will receive the liquid first, the tray itself, the mold, it'll receive it. And then when you put it in the freezer will freeze it, no matter what. If you don't put food coloring in it, it will do the same thing. Now, you may have noticed that I have been speaking about the law as a single entity or power. But each of you have also heard me teach and speak about the law of attraction, the law of circulation. You may have heard of the law of assumption, which is something that's getting a lot of traction on social media right now. And the conversation, it's another way to talk about the law of abundance, to talk about manifestation. It's not a new law that was discovered. And then there's our sermon series that we're in now, the law of abundance. Well, how many laws are there? There's only one. There is one law, and the law has infinite expressions. So from our human perspective, in order to understand God working in our lives, we have given God many names, and we have named that expression of God and activity of God by many names, like the law of this or the law of that, or this spiritual principle or that spiritual principle. We see the same thing happening in the First Testament, and particularly those of you who grew up in the traditional Christian church, and particularly evangelical and Pentecostal spaces, right? All of the different words for God, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Nisi, right? All of these ways of thinking about and talking about God, the expression of God, because it is one, but from our human perspective, as we want to understand it, we apply all of these different words in the same way that I am singularly Gregory Stamper Jr., but I am Yolanda's partner. I am Malcolm's father, right? I am Greg and LaDonna's son, right? I am Gabriel and Nia's uncle. I am Lynette's brother, right? I am a colleague to some. I am a friend to others, right? And so there's all these different expressions of the one that is Gregory Stamper Jr. So this is how we understand that the law is one, but there are infinite expressions. And from our human perspective, this is how we can understand God working in our lives. So know that we are always speaking of one thing. We are always speaking of God, the law, working in our lives. And so earlier I mentioned that 3-part sermon series that we taught in 2020, You Better Work, Spiritual Principles for Successful Living. And in that series, we looked at 11 laws as covered in the book Working with the Law by Raymond Holliwell. And while we covered a lot in that series, in truth, we could have spent 1 month on each principle or each law. So in this series, we're going to focus on one law or one expression of the law, and that is the law of supply, or what I'm calling the law of abundance. We're in a moment of time that mirrors where we were 5 years ago. The economy was in turmoil before COVID, and then COVID moved us into more problems as it related to the economy. There were massive layoffs then. There were job losses then. There were income losses then. The stock market started to tank just as it has in this past week. I know many of you were looking at your 401ks. It reminded me of 2008. I remember during that time of the recession, watching my 401k just dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. Right? The stock market has gone down. Fear and uncertainty is looming all across the country. Stores that have been around seemingly forever are downsizing or shutting down completely. People are anxious and some have already panicked. So I'm here today to disrupt that reality show and remind you that at every moment you get to choose your reality. I'm here to disrupt that reality show and remind you that you have agency over your mind and thus you have agency in your life. I'm here to disrupt that reality show and remind you that you don't have to take the ride on the lack and scarcity train. But in order to do this, as I said earlier, you must understand the law of abundance. You must trust the law of abundance, and then you must make that the truth of your life and manifest from that reality. So this scripture, Psalm 23, this affirmative statement is rooted and grounded in the law of abundance. The law is my shepherd. I shall not want. You want to know what affirmative prayer sounds like? That's an affirmative prayer. If you never prayed another prayer, you wanted to make sure you're praying affirmatively, pray that prayer. The law is my shepherd. I shall not want. This statement acknowledges the source of abundance, and at the same time, it tells us that this source always supplies, always sustains, always nurtures, always feeds, always fulfills, always provides, always gives, always aids, always assists, always awards, and always pays. Affirmation time. The law is my shepherd. I shall not want. One more time. The law is my shepherd. I shall not want. Let's say it again. The law is my shepherd. I shall not want. Now, this is a powerful understanding and a powerful affirmation because what it is saying is that God, the law, is the supply and the supplier. God, the law, is both the giver and the gift. And this may be easy to believe as a theoretical truth, but the affirmative statement, the law is my shepherd, I shall not want, and the rest of Psalm 23 is void of theory. It is a knowing. It is an affirmative statement of truth and fact. Every verse affirms what God or the law is being or doing in the present tense. That's another one of those secrets of affirmative prayer, what makes prayer affirmative versus that other stuff. We read in the verse, God, the law, makes me lie down in green pastures. God, the law, leads me beside still waters. God, the law, leads me in right paths. God, the law, is with me. God, the law, comforts me. God, the law, prepares a table before me. God, the law, anoints my head with oil. God, the law, as goodness and kindness, follows me all the days of my life. There's no asking there. It's not asking God to follow you all the days of your life or to lead you to green pastures and still waters. It's not hoping or wishing. That's why the definiteness of a statement, I shall not want. It's impossible because the law is my shepherd. There's a law of abundance that is, I will always have. Again, it always sustains, it always supplies, it always nurtures, it always feeds, it always fulfills, provides, gives, aids, assists, awards, and pays. Lord have mercy. And so this is your opportunity today. Do you see how abundance can operate in your life? Green pastures and still waters. See, we got to understand what the metaphor of this is. And of course, I don't think there's anybody here watching today that is a shepherd or a former shepherd or worked with sheep. Maybe you have, right? So a lot of this stuff doesn't resonate for us in the way that it would have resonated at the time that it was first recited and sung, and later felt to be so impactful that it should be written down and recorded so that we could be here in 2025 and read the same words. But green pastures and still waters, when you understand the law, then trust the law. It will lead and guide you to where there's opportunity, even when the reality show of the world says there's no opportunity. The law will lead you to multiple opportunities for employment while others are saying they can't find work. The law will give you inspired ideas to create a new business or to partner with an existing business, leading to a prosperous outcome for all whom it affects. The law will lead you to the right doctors and caregivers that believe you can reverse the condition and support you in becoming whole again. That's what green pastures and still waters is about, because the green pastures was sustenance. It's where the good food at. That's what a good shepherd does. Make sure that their sheep get the best food. Green pastures. Not kind of green and a little yellow over here and, oh, well, don't look over there. You don't want to mess with that over there. Just a lush green pastures. So you can just eat to your heart's content till you fall out and you feel like your stomach's going to pop. Still waters. Do you know that the law of abundance also leads to rest? The law of abundance is the opposite of burnout. If you're doing too much and hustling and grinding, you are not operating in the law of abundance, right? And so the outcome of that is always the same. It's burnout, it's anger and frustration and resentment, and then eventually it will lead to some health challenges. So you're not beside still waters and you're not in green pastures. The law of abundance leads you to rest, leads you to ease. I'm preaching to somebody today. I hope you're getting this. I hope you're getting this. But in order to operate in this, in order to be in this space of being led and guided to opportunity, to be led and guided to inspired ideas, to be led and guided to the right healthcare providers and the right practitioners, the right doctors and caregivers, this requires trust, not theory. Trust. Some of y'all have been operating in new thought theory for far too long. This is one of the reasons why the February series was Thy Will Be Done, which was all about surrender and trust, where surrender leads to miracles. Someone is listening to this message today, and you may be realizing for the very first time that the God of your understanding and the God that you've been working with in your mind, in your life, is theoretical. You like the ideas of the things that we've been talking about. You like the ideas of God consciousness that we've been talking about. You like the idea of shifting mercy to kindness, but you still have a merciful God in your mind. Someone is realizing right now that your God is a seeing is believing God. But trust is a believing before you see, believing without seeing. See, it's easy to affirm abundance when you have more than enough. It's easy to affirm abundance when you can look at your bank account balance and you like what you see. It's easy to affirm abundance when you have money in your pocket. It's easy to affirm abundance when you have a lover in your bed. It's easy to affirm abundance when you're feeling good in your body. But this trust that I speak of cannot be based on the reality show of the world or even the reality show that's temporarily good. It must be based on the reality in your mind that is not conditioned by the state of the world. And that ain't theory, y'all. That's called faith. Faith and trust are synonymous. Believing without seeing. Believing without seeing. Believing without seeing. Now, fittingly, the April readings in 365 Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes and Raymond Charles Barker are actually inspired by Psalm 23. And so the Momentum Prayer Call on this past Wednesday, I read one of those readings purposefully, and we're going to use those throughout this month. But they're inspired by Psalm 23. So if you have that book, I encourage you to use that for your daily spiritual practice reading this month. It's April 1st through the 17th. Each one of those takes a little chunk of Psalm 23 and then adds truth to it. So as I encourage you to use that for your 555 and for the reading portion of your 555, I want to close by sharing two passages, which are from the first 2 days, the Lord is my shepherd and the I shall not want. God is the shepherd of my life, and this inner mind and love guides me into paths of perfection and ways of joy. God's perfect action can never cease and can never be delayed. Always it guides me. Always it inspires me. Always it blesses and benefits me. I am free from all uncertainty, for my God delivers every idea to me at the instant of time that I need it. See, this is how God as a shepherd in the 21st century will operate in, through, and as your life, guiding you into paths of perfection and joy. No, never ceasing, no delays, always benefiting, always blessing, always guiding, always inspiring, leading you out of uncertainty into certainty. I live in a universe that is God created and God sustained, and I shall never lack any good thing. The intelligence that brought forth this universe is the intelligence of my mind today. Ooh, Lord have mercy. The lavishness of nature is proof to me that my own personal life can be filled with an abundance beyond the limits of my present belief. Doesn't matter what you believe right now. There's proof. If you want to look at something, look at the lavishness of nature, because it's proof that lavish abundance is available and available to you right here and right now. In this short term, if you need to see something so you can believe, look at that and turn off the news. Look at that and stop reading the headlines. Look at that and stop joining in those complaining, woe is me conversations. The lavishness of nature is proof to me that my own personal life can be filled with an abundance beyond the limits of my present belief. This is then when we understand and can start to embrace what's absolutely possible for us. Abundance is the foundation of life. We see abundance everywhere. And the reading goes on, I accept it in every form, whether money, friends, gifts, or opportunities. I seek the prosperous ways of life, for I know that I am God ordained to experience their good. So this is important, because while you may be looking for the job, and so you're saying, oh, well, I'm looking for the job, I'm looking for employment, I'm looking for someone to hire me, I'm looking for someone to say yes. But the abundance and prosperity of God is showing up in so many different ways, and you might be saying no to it in the other forms, money, friends, gifts, or opportunities. But you actually have to learn, because we live in an abundant universe, and every expression of abundance is God, the shepherd, giving to you. You say yes to it and you receive it, because as you move into that posture and live in that posture of saying yes and receiving, the other things that you desire will be added unto you. I seek the prosperous ways of life, for I know that I am God ordained to experience their good. My riches are of the mind and spirit. See, this is where I was talking about this idea of you got to take your eyes off the reality show of the world and start to embrace the reality show of your very own mind. Your riches, when they become of the mind and spirit, this is where the teaching of Jesus reminds us to store up our treasures in heaven, in the mind and spirit, right? Where neither moth nor rust can get to it. Nobody can steal it. Nobody can change it. It won't matter who's in the White House. It won't matter what's going on. It won't matter the foolishness and how they voting and not voting and who they advocating for and who they cozy up to and who they protecting. None of that will matter. Because your riches are of mind and spirit. And it goes on, and they demonstrate for me all that I need or shall ever want. And the law is my shepherd. I know the law. I trust the law. I live from and by the law. And so it delivers to me. It demonstrates. I demonstrate what I think and believe. That's what manifestation is. It's a demonstration of your mind. All that I shall ever need or shall ever want. I refute all belief that I cannot afford the best. Ooh, Lord have mercy. See, when you know that the law is your shepherd, you know that you can afford the best. You don't just make do. I'm in somebody's house right now. I know. God's desire for me is my everlasting good. I accept prosperity. I accept money as God in action. I accept myself as prosperity. A word right there. I accept myself as prosperity. Because see, once you understand that even you yourself, your very own life, your very own expression is an individualized God expression, God experience of prosperity, you understand that you're here to prosper the world and prosper others, as well as prosper yourself in your own life. And it's like, well, because I exist, if I accept myself as prosperity, then I must experience prosperity at every turn of my life. What is prosperity? Happiness, health, success, and money. That's complete prosperity. Knowing that the law is our shepherd, this is what we affirm today. This is the knowingness we stand in, even as the world may live or make fear, lack, and scarcity their shepherd. Remember, the law is always working in our lives because it responds to what we provide. It responds to where we put the focus of our attention. So in truth, everyone is affirming the law is my shepherd, but not everyone is affirming I shall not want. Everyone is affirming the law is my shepherd, but some are affirming and I am scared. Everyone is affirming the law is my shepherd, but others are affirming and I don't have enough. Everyone is affirming the law is my shepherd, but across the street they're affirming there's not enough to go around. Everyone is affirming the law is my shepherd, but on the other side of town they're affirming let me get mine before they take it all. Do you get the picture? So what I want to leave you with now is a practical exercise as we teach practical spirituality here at CSC. If you're already living in the I shall not want, good, yes. This exercise will then support you in growing, expanding, and evolving your trust and expectancy because there's no ceiling on your good. There's no ceiling on your embrace and understanding of I shall not want. If you now realize as a result of this sermon that maybe you only believe I shall not want in theory, or you only believe I shall not want when times are good, this exercise will support you in moving from confusion to clarity, from doubt to certainty. So the portion of the reading that I shared from 365 Days of Richer Living and the other readings contain powerful affirmations. And again, just as a reminder, 365 Days of Richer Living by Ernest Holmes and Raymond Charles Barker. And this is the first 17 days of April. They take a small portion of Psalm 23, starting with the Lord is my shepherd on day 1. The second day is I shall not want, and they go on and on and on. As you go through the reading, choose the lines that resonate with you. Choose the lines that make you feel something. Choose the lines that wake you up and energize you. There's some lines that I read today that you were like, oh, right? Right? Choose those lines. After reading them, fill up a page during the affirmative writing portion of your daily spiritual practice with those affirmations. Rewrite or reword them to make them your own or to address the specific situation or challenge in your life that you're moving through that you need to remember not only that the Lord is your shepherd, but that you shall not want. I did this for 90 days. Many of the lines I read today are seared in my mind because of that practice. I shall never lack anything good. The lavishness of nature is proof to me that my own personal life can be filled with abundance. I accept prosperity in every form. I shifted that a little bit. I refuse to believe that I cannot afford the best. I accept prosperity. I accept money as God in action. I accept myself as prosperity. Beautiful souls. This is not a time to fall into fear, panic, and dismay. This is a time to remember the law as abundance. This is a time to remember that the Lord is your shepherd. You shall not want. This is the time to fully understand the law of abundance so that you can trust the law, and then you can make the law the truth of your life and demonstrate and manifest from this law. There is so much more to come as we move through this series. We have 7 weeks to really dig into what this law of abundance means. Also, of course, we have the God Talk on the 3rd Sunday. So as things are coming up and in the coming weeks, you're hearing things and you have questions, that is your space, right? To come to, because it is in the asking of questions and the clarifying that you illuminate your own mind and you illuminate your own possibility. I am so grateful and thankful for the word that has come forth. I'm so grateful and thankful for each and every one of you. And for this truth, I simply say amen, ashe, and so it is.